Ryan here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make some cool Sophie style sounds. As usual, I'm giving away the presets as well as samples of all of these, so if you're not in Ableton but you still want to use these sounds, there's going to be some samples. You can get them for free in the description as well as the presets. And yeah, let's dive in. So the first thing that you heard here in the intro is this little noise which sounds like this. And so this is really a pretty simple sound. There's not a whole lot to it. It's pretty much just a matter of putting white noise into some weird volume shaping. And I have a saturator there as well. But then into the grain delay. So, like I said, it's just some white noise in operator. And then I have this going into an auto pan, which is doing the volume shaping. I have the phase on 0, so it's just affecting the mono signal as opposed to making it actually do like an auto panning effect. And then I have that set to 24th notes. So you can kind of see, like, if I turn this off, it just really sounds like white noise going into some grain delay. But when you add this, that's what gives it the kind of like just sort of that sound, I guess, where it's like, yeah, it just got the quick LFO on the volume. And you can play around with the rate as well. You can like automate it and get some cool sounds. But yeah, so then after that, like I said, I have this saturator. It's just the A Bit Warmer preset. If you go under Ableton Saturator, it's the first one. Pretty solid. It's just beefing it up a little bit. And then I have that going into a grain delay. So the way I have this grain delay set up is we are on the time mode as opposed to the sync, where you can do like sync to the BPM. And yeah, I have it on 5 milliseconds, so pretty quick. The dry wet is 100% up. The pitch is up to an octave. And then I have the frequency set there. And then I have the spray. So the spray is kind of where this sound comes from. The spray, as you would imagine, is kind of what makes it sort of like have that spraying kind of sound. Like if I turn this up all the way, you can hear that's like, yeah, that's like really grainy. But if we put it down to about like here, you can see we still get that graininess from it, but it's not like overpowering the sound. So that was why I did that. And yeah, so this is a pretty simple sound. You can play around with it, you know, like if you mess with the auto pan time or the rate, and then like maybe you could use like a filter here. Like I was playing around with a high pass, which sounded kind of cool. You can like automate it. There's a lot that can be done, but this is just a nice, cool, kind of like textured sound. So the next sound I have here is this little blip thing, which sounds like this. So I made this with operator. What it is it's basically a square wave, but it's the square 8 waveform, which I'll explain in a second. And then I have a sine wave doing some FM with that. And they're going into a filter, which is going into a grain delay. So, like I said, we have the square 8 waveform for the first oscillator. So, what this is, you can kind of see it over here, is it's essentially a square wave, but it's missing a bit of the harmonics. Like, it's not completely as harmonically rich as a square wave would be, which is good in this case because we don't want something that's like super square wavy. Like, if I switch this to a regular square, you can kind of hear it coming through, but the square 8 sounds good there. So then, like I said, that's just going into some FM with this sine wave, and then that's going into this low-pass filter. So on the low-pass filter, what I have is the frequency and resonance are up all the way. We're on the MS2 mode, which I'll explain in a second. And then I have an envelope on the filter going down. So it's kind of like that, like if it was just closing the filter really quickly, essentially. That's what it's doing. And then, yeah, so like I said, this is on the MS2 mode, so if you don't know, in Ableton's operator and in all the filters in Ableton, there are these different modes, and you can get, like, they do, like, different things with the resonance and stuff, sort of, like, oscillating and getting that, like, really high-pitched sort of tone. So, yeah, so that was why I used that. If I put this on clean mode, it's not quite as powerful. So then after that, I just have this grain delay. It's actually set up pretty similar to the way it was on the noise. Like, I'm just using the spray to kind of make it, like, more sort of spread out and, like I said, more spray-ish sounding. But then I have the dry wet down quite a bit lower on this one, so here's without it. And then with this isn't really making the sound here, it's just accentuating it and giving it more texture. So then the next thing that I have here is the snare, which sounds like this. So I was trying to make a little bit of a different kind of metallic snare than the usual one that you hear, and I think I actually came up with something pretty cool. So what's going on here is we have 3 layers. We have this layer, and then this layer. So we have kind of like the punch, like the hit, the impact of the snare, and then this is sort of like the sizzle part of the snare, like the high end, and then this is obviously the metallic part. So for the first part, what it did was it's just a sine wave with a pitch envelope on it. Pretty straightforward. Essentially, we just have a really short decay on the sine wave, and then the pitch envelope gives it that like click. So yeah, you can see that's what makes it kind of like percussive. So then on the high-end sizzly layer, what we have is some white noise, and then that's going into a bandpass filter. So this is how I like to set these kind of snares up. Like if you do like the punch layer, and then something simple for the sort of like high-end sizzle like this, which is just some white noise, again going into a bandpass filter. Then that kind of makes like a nice bed of sound, and sort of like starts the snare, so you can put the metallic part on top. So yeah, so then the only other thing that I did on this white noise was I just added a little bit of envelope on the filter. I find it makes it a little bit more realistic. If we turn that off, it's just kind of like white noise. It doesn't really change, but when you hit like a snare in real life, it's very dynamic. Like the sound changes a lot over time. It does all these things. So adding a little envelope like that on this bandpass is a good way to accomplish that. So then finally, I have the metallic layer. So I made this with wavetable. What it is it's this harmonic series wavetable. And I have some FM on it, so you can see I have the amount there. I believe I'm modulating the amount in the... Yeah, so I'm modulating the amount with an envelope, but it's set there. And then I have the tune set to 23%. So this is something that's kind of important for these sounds, is to use FM synthesis. But then what you have to do is not just tune it like in perfect octaves. Like using this tune knob and just kind of moving it around as I did, you can find some cool things, because what you'll get is the harmonic content that FM synthesis is of course going to add to your sound, but it's not going to be perfectly tuned, which for short percussive sounds like this that you don't need to be melodic, again, this can actually be kind of cool. Like you can come up with some interesting things, and that was kind of what I did here. So then after that, I have it going into this low pass filter, which is being shaped by an envelope as well. You can see same one that's on the FM amount. And yeah, so after that, I have a grain delay. So this is not really doing a whole lot. You can see the dry wet is pretty low. It just kind of helps bring it to life a little bit. You can hear it ringing out there at the end of the sound. And then I have the saturator, which, as you can see, I kind of went in on. I have the drive set there, but then I used the wave shaper down here, and I just kind of played around with the settings until I found something cool. I'll show you. Here's what it sounds like without it, and then with it. So it's really not changing the sound too drastically, but I found like it did add some nice harmonic content to the sound, and like overall it made it a bit more powerful, especially if we turn off this saturator at the end. You can hear it makes kind of a big difference. So yeah, just kind of subtle things, although that probably looks like it's doing a lot more to the sound than it is. So then after that, on the whole instrument rack here, I have this saturator. So this is affecting all 3 of these, and what this is doing is actually doing like a ton of drive. I have the drive up pretty high, and then I use the wave shaper on this one as well to just kind of like shape the sound. Here's without that, and then with it. So you can hear it just kind of glues everything together. Like without it, I find it sounds a lot more like 3 separate layers versus when I add it. Like I said, it's just kind of like a nice glue. This is a pretty solid way to make these kind of sounds. Like really the key to the metallic snares is the FM synthesis going into saturation, because it's just the most efficient way and the most effective way really to like shape the sound in the way that you need for those. Like obviously, a synthesizer is definitely made to make percussive sounds, but to make percussive sounds like this is going to take a little bit of stuff. Like you have to shape the waveform a little bit and do things to kind of mess with it. So that was the goal here. So that's going to be it for today, guys. Make sure to let me know what you think of this video in the comments, and make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Check out my social media, which is on the screen right now. Once again, you can get this project file as well as the presets and samples of all of these sounds in the description, so you can play around with it yourself. Thank you again, everybody. I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial.